to different sections of Indian society. So friends, in today's class, we'll be discussing about the policy of reservations in the Indian society. In fact, the policy of reservations is a very unique policy to suit to the Indian conditions to address the problem of social inequalities in India. Indian society has been experiencing these social inequalities for so many centuries, from time immemorial. For the last thousands of years, the Indian society has been experiencing these social inequalities and bad practices, socially unviable practices, inhuman and uncivilized practices in Indian society. So, to reverse this process and to establish social equality and bring the dignity and self-respect of human being to the center stage, the Indian Constitution has provided certain reservation facilities to various sections of people, particularly the Dalits, the Adivasis, the backward castes, the women and minorities, and so on. So today's lesson is on reservation policy. Reservation policy as such is becoming a part of the Indian Constitution. Article 15 and Article 16 of the Constitution clearly defines the objectives of providing reservations to backward classes. Article 15 and Article 16 has categorically stated that reversing the social injustice meted out to certain socially and economically backward classes is the priority area of Indian Constitution, and Indian Constitution has provided a new lease of life through the right to equality and provide them reservations to bring them up on par with all the people of social mainstream. So this is the purpose of reservations. And in today's class, we should know what is the purpose and what are the reasons for reservations and what is the history of reservations in India and what are the efforts that are made towards bringing reservations in India and what are the arguments in favor of reservations and against reservations in Indian society and issues related to backward class reservations and the creamy layer concept that the court has set as a precondition for utilizing the reservations. So these are the issues that we have to go discuss. And first we'll start with the causes for formulating the reservation policy. What are the causes for undertaking reservations in Indian society? In fact, what is reservation? Reservations are the instruments to give representation to certain social sectors which are either unrepresented or underrepresented in certain areas of public life. For example, education, public employment, politics. These are the three major areas where certain sections of people are either unrepresented or underrepresented. Their representation in these sectors is not on par with their population. So reservations are introduced to ensure proper representation to the classes which are historically oppressed. That is the purpose of reservations. And this reservation, the policy of reservation is with different names in different countries. For example, in America, it is called as affirmative action. And the American Constitution provides reservation to some of the blacks in the in the American society. Likewise, in other countries where social discrimination is rampant, there also the reservation system policy was also there. But for example, in Malaysia, the concept of Bhumiputra was there. And likewise, in American society, this is called positive or affirmative action. Reservation facilities are there. Now, let us see what is the reason for reservations. What are the reasons for reservations? Why reservations? Why the government is providing reservations to scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, backward castes, women, and other minority communities? Because these sections of people are historically oppressed. They were exploited. They were exploited by the dominant castes of Indian society. This is the first reason. Secondly, these sections of people are backward because they are underrepresented or underrepresented in education, public employment, and politics. This is the second reason. And thirdly, these sections of people have been facing and had been facing so many humiliating social experiences due to their caste and due to their bad practices, the social practices, certain bad social practices. So, due to these things, reservation facilities are given. So, the very purpose of reservations, there are three main reasons for the policy of reservations that is formulated by the Indian Constitution. In fact, the policy of reservation is becoming a part and parcel of Indian Constitution in Article 15 and Article 16 of the Constitution. Article 15 and Article 16 emphasizes that the Constitution of India will provide equal representation to all the people, and it provides certain additional representation to the sections which are historically underrepresented and unrepresented. And the Constitution of India has also identified certain communities as scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. So in one of the schedules of the Indian Constitution, there the names of the castes are written. Those castes that are mentioned in the Constitution schedule, they are called as the scheduled castes. And likewise, the Constitution of India has also provided the names of various tribes that are mentioned in a separate schedule. They are called as scheduled tribes. The scheduled castes and scheduled tribes are the social sections who are historically oppressed, historically exploited, historically humiliated by the dominant communities of Indian society. This is because of caste system prevailing in India. Indian society has classified the social composition into four categories of castes. That's called as the Chatur Varna system. In the Chatur Varna system, the society is classified into four dominant classes, social classes: the Brahmins, the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, and the Shudras. So this is how the Chaturvarna system was very much in vogue in the Indian social system. So the Chaturvarna system laid down a social ladder in which Brahmins are given the top position, next to them the Kshatriyas, next to them the Vaishyas, and next to them the Shudras. So this is how in a social ladder different castes were placed according to their social standing. And beneath all the four sections of society, there is also the fifth class, the fifth category of citizens. They are called as the Panchamas, They're also called as the untouchables of Indian society. So the Indian caste system has excluded certain communities from the purview of public education and public employment. And these sections are persistently witnessing economic exploitation in the hands of the dominant sections. So this is the first reason, because certain sections of the Indian society were historically at a disadvantaged position. So to reverse the disadvantage as an advantage, the Constitution of India has provided reservation facilities. So the Constitution of India tries to reverse the process of uncivilized living into a civilized living. And it has assured in Article 15 and 16 of the Indian Constitution that certain percentage of reservations are to be given to scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. So, to address the question of underrepresentation and underrepresentation of certain sections of society, the reservation facilities has come. This is the first reason. Secondly, these sections were historically oppressed. These sections were facing humiliation in the hands of the upper caste and upper layers of the society and other social classes in the society. So that's why, to address the question of oppression and make the living much more democratic by giving equal respect and respect for the dignity and self-respect of each and every individual, reservations are inevitable. That's why the government felt that it should reverse the historical oppression and provide a society where the democratic rights and democratic respect of each and every citizen is followed by the Indian society. So this is the second reason. And thirdly, there is a lot of backwardness among these sections of people. In fact, in some of the areas of India, these sections of people are even denied of protected water, protected drinking water. They are stopped from entering into the temples. They are stopped entering into public places. They were stopped from walking with slippers. They are from entering into public places like hotels and motels. So likewise, these sections have faced so many social restrictions. And it's a very humiliating experience for these sections of society. That's why, to stop this uncivilized practice of social oppression, the Constitution of India has provided reservation facilities to these sections. So the first one is the Constitution of India, thanks to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who has done a pioneering effort in studying all the constitutions of the world and came out with a package of reservations for Indian society with his rationalist approach. And due to his initiatives, the reservation facilities were included in the Indian Constitution. And Indian Constitution has provided a solid backup and solid background for the implementation of reservations for different sections of society. So many, there are three important reasons for reservations in Indian society. The first one is underrepresentation of certain sections in education, public employment, and politics. That is the first reason, either underrepresentation or underrepresentation. Some of the castes in Indian society have no representation in the public employment. Some of the castes in Indian society were not at all given an opportunity to go to schools and colleges and to acquire higher education or secondary education, even primary education also. So this is how these sections are denied of public services like education, public employment, and politics. So this is called as unrepresentation or underrepresentation. This is one reason why reservations are to be implemented. Secondly, these sections of society have faced historical oppression. Due to the historical oppression, these sections of society were never allowed for a social interaction and social intercourse. They were never allowed in the community dinners and community functions. They were never allowed to the places of worship like temples and others, and places of public entertainment and places of public utility like river ponds and water ponds and so on. So this is how these sections of society have faced historical oppression by not providing the protected drinking water, even wages for the work that they have done, the fair wages that they have done, that these wages are also denied to these sections. So this is the second important reason. This is called as the historical oppression. And thirdly, the backwardness. These sections of society, particularly the scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other backward castes, are so the first reason is underrepresentation of certain social categories like the Dalits, Adivasis, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, backward castes, women, and minorities. In areas of public utility like education sector, public health sector, public employment sector, and politics. This is the first reason. Secondly, these sections had been facing social oppression in the history. For the last 2000 years or so, even more, these sections of society have been facing historical oppression. So this is the second important reason. And thirdly, these sections were backward. They suffered abject poverty. They did not have 2 square meal a day. They were suffering from destitution and abject poverty. They have no access to drinking water. There is no access to proper food grains. Even for the hard work they have done, even landlords and others denied them a fair share of wages, and they were exploited by different sections of society. So these are the three important reasons. The first one is underrepresentation of these groups. Second one is historical oppression. And third one is backwardness. So these are the three important reasons for the course of reservations and the policy of reservations that was undertaken by the Indian government to bring social justice and social democracy and economic democracy in the Indian society. Because these sections constitute nearly 60% of the Indian population, the backward castes, the scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, minorities, and women, nearly constituting more than 60% of Indian population. And when they were denied of the social justice and social living with dignity and self-respect, there is no meaning for democracy. That's why Indian Constitution, after the commencement of the Indian Constitution, one of the objectives of Indian Constitution is to provide democracy to the people, equality to the people, liberty to the people, fraternity to the people. So, as an objective, as a constitutional objective, the reservation policy is included in the Indian society. And now let us see what is the history of reservations in Indian society. The history of reservations in Indian society goes back to the ancient times, medieval times, modern times, particularly in the modern times, the British era. We have to look into four periods. During the ancient times, the Brahmins always have the privilege of higher education and public employment. In a way, they have enjoyed much brighter role than other sections of society. So, the Brahmins of Indian society have enjoyed a fair share of education and public employment and policy making in the Indian society. And likewise, in the medieval society, the same oppression was there and same social inequalities were continued. And there are even social evils. They have come up in medieval times. Social evils like sati, child marriages, Jogini system and Basivini system, uh, mana dowry system. So these are the some of the social evils that are attached to the caste system. So they have come, and during the medieval times also, these sections have faced a lot of humiliation and injustice in the hands of dominant sections of Indian society. But only during the colonial era, the system of a fair policy for all the people with equality as its emphasis is started. For example, in 1872, for the first time, the education policy is formulated, and that policy was made available to all the people of the society, irrespective of caste, creed, nation, color of the body, religion, region, or anything, gender, likewise. That means for the first time in Indian society, the system of equality was created and education was made equal to all the people, and the government has provided equal opportunity to all the people in availing the facilities of education to all the people for the first time. So the British government also passed the Caste Disability Act, and it has also given unhindered admission to lower castes to education with the beginning of the quest for advancement of weaker sections of Indian society. And for the first time in late 19th century, some of the Dalits have become students of Indian education system. And before that, there was no schooling for the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Thanks to the efforts of social reformers like Mahatma Jyotiba Phule and later Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who have initiated the admission process for the backward classes and other backward classes and scheduled classes, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes into the Indian education system. So this is a notable trend. In 1872, the British government has started this. And for the first time in the history of India, reservation facilities are created in Mysore, in the state of Mysore in 1874. 1874, the Maharaja of Mysore have created certain seats, reservations for the communities which are from backward classes, scheduled castes, and scheduled tribes. So that means for the first time, the classes which are historically oppressed were stated to have reservation facilities in the education sector, in the education, public education, and public employment. Reservation facilities were created for the first time by a Maharaja of a princely state in South India, namely the Mysore Prince. The Prince of Mysore has started reservation facility. Later, the British government has adopted this, and British government has come out with a policy proposal in its acts, Indian Government Act of 1909, 1919, and 1935. Reservations were made available to different sections of society. In 1909 Act, the Indian Councils of Act, the Indian Councils Act of 1909, the British government has reserved certain seats for Muslims. The Muslims were given reservation for the first time. Later in 1919, the Government of India Act of 1919 has created reservation facilities for scheduled castes. They are called as the depressed classes during that period. And they have also provided reservation for some certain European communities, Anglo-Indians and Sikhs, Muslims and others. So this is how the reservations are created. First by the princely state of Mysore, later that is supported by the British government. The British government has come out with a new proposal of reservations in 1909, 1919 and 1935 Acts. In 1909 Act, that's known as the Minto-Morley Act, that has provided reservations for the Muslim communities. And later in 1919 Act, that's called as the Montague-Chelmsford Reforms Act. The Montague-Chelmsford Reforms Act, the reservation facilities are provided to certain other sections of Indian society besides Muslims who are depressed. These include the depressed classes, the Sikhs, the Muslims, the Anglo-Indians, the Indian Christians, and various other groups. So this is how the reservation facilities are first started by the Mysore King princely state. Later, they are extended to Indians by the British government. The British government also has introduced these reservations. And 1935 Act has provided reservations to scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, other backward castes. They are known as the depressed sections of Indian society. And it also provided certain religious reservations, such as reservation for Sikhs, Muslims, Parsis, and others. So reservation facilities are started in Indian society by a princely state of Mysore, and later they are extended to the Indian society by the British government in the British Indian areas. So this is the history of the reservations. And later, the Great Pune Pact has come. This Pune Pact has come, and there was an agreement between Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and Mahatma Gandhi on the nature and system of reservations in the Indian society. And previously, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar suggested that there should be separate electorates for depressed sections and Muslims of Indian society. But Gandhi opposed this, and he said joint electorate should be encouraged and reservation facilities should be allowed to certain sections of Indian society called scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, other backward castes, women, and minorities. So this is how an agreement is reached between Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. This is popularly known as the Pune Pact. The Pune Pact is an important pact that has provided for the extended reservations to Dalits, depressed classes of Indian society, and it is extended even to the politics also, political sector. Previously, it was confined only to education sector and public employment. Now it is extended to the political sector also. So this is the brief history of reservations in Indian society. Let us recapitulate the history of Indian society, the history of reservations in Indian society. It all began with the Mysore Maharaja started reservations in 1834, and later he extended it to various other sections of society where all the castes or depressed classes has identified certain classes as underprivileged and disadvantaged classes who are not at all using the education facilities or public health facilities and public employment facilities. These sections have underrepresentation in these sections. So in such a case, he has introduced reservation facilities for the first time. Later, the process was implemented by the British government. The British government, under the leadership of the Mountbattens in 1909 Act, the Minto-Morley Act, and in 1919 Act, the Montague-Chelmsford Act. These are the two notable acts that have provided for reservation facilities in the Indian society. Whereas the 1909 Act has provided reservations only for Muslims. The 1919 Act and 1935 Act have provided reservations for Muslims, Sikhs, Indian Christians, Anglo-Indians, uh, depressed classes, and other classes. So this is the scope of reservations is widened in 1919 Act and 1935 Act. And later, a Pune Pact is reached between Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and Mahatma Gandhi. This act has laid the foundation for political reservations in Indian society. And as a result of this act, the joint electorates were introduced and the separate electorates for depressive sections is waived off. And on the basis of this Pune Pact, the British government has introduced the communal award, that's also called as the Ramsay MacDonald Award. As a result of the Ramsay MacDonald Award, the British government has extended the reservation facilities uh, to depressed classes, Muslims, Indian Christians, Anglo-Indians, and other sections of society. There are various committees and commissions on reservations. In the period, post-independence period, notable among them are two important committees or commissions that are constituted by the Indian government for making a suggestion on reservations. In fact, the Constitution of India has provided reservations only for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. And on the question of reservations to backward classes, the Constitution of India has given opportunity for the Parliament to discuss upon it. So as a result, the reservation facilities for backward classes at the national level was only at a discussion point for the first 6 or 7 decades of Indian independence. So after that, the Indian government has constituted a committee, two commissions. One is Baba Kalekar Commission, the other one is the Mandal Commission. These are the two commissions that are constituted by the Indian government to make suggestions on reservation facilities for other backward classes and backward classes who suffered historical injustice and underrepresentation of certain sections in health sector, education sector, public employment sector, and political sector. Baba Kaka Kalekar's committee was constituted And this commission was set up under Article 340 of the Constitution that has provided for the constitution of a committee for uh, suggesting reservation facilities for backward classes. And later, the Mandal Commission is constituted, and the Mandal Commission has submitted its report in fact, this was appointed in 1978 when Janata Party government was there. First non-Congress party government was constituted in India, the central government, under the leadership of Morarji Desai. The Mandal Commission is constituted. The Mandal Commission has submitted its report, and in 1989, this report came out. And this report suggested that there should be some reservations for the backward classes also. Besides the scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, reservation facilities are to be given to backward classes also. So the major recommendations of this commission include reservation facilities for 27% of reservation, 27% reservation facilities for other backward classes in central government institutions and all the educational institutions, and 27% reservations for promotions at all at all levels, and carry over period of 3 years for unified reservation quota, and age relaxation for OBCs should be similar to that of SCs and STs. So these are the recommendations that the Mandal Commission report has suggested, and the government accepted the Mandal Commission report in 1989, and it started implementing it from 1991 onwards. And at that time, there was a huge movement, both in favor of Mandal Commission and against Mandal Commission. So Mandal movement has virtually crippled the Indian society, and some people argued in favor of reservations for other backward classes, and some people argued reservations against reservation facilities for the other backward classes. So this is how the reservation facilities, the policy of reservation has come under attack by the traditionalists and conventionalists, the conservative sections of society, criticized the Indian government granting reservations to other backward classes, the social and economically backward classes of society. During the recent past, the central government in Indian society has also introduced the economically weaker sections reservations. That's called as EWS reservations. EWS reservations are introduced in Indian society, and these reservations are provided to economically backward classes whose financial sources are very limited annually. Generally, the families whose financial annual income per annum is below 1 lakh rupees, these reservation facilities are to be implemented. So EWS reservations are also introduced in the Indian society as a result of the Indian government initiative that economically and socially backward classes also require reservations. So these are some of the historical landmarks on the history of reservations. Let us recapitulate all the historical landmarks. The first one is the Mysore Maharaja, the princely state of Mysore, has introduced the reservations. Later, the Government of India Act of 1909, 1919, and 1935 endorsed reservations and extended reservation facilities to various sections of people. And 1935 Act also has a provision for reservations based on the Pune Pact. And in the post-independence period, reservation facilities are extended to backward class, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. And the government has constituted two commissions, Kalekar Commission and Mandal Commission. And these two commissions have thoroughly examined all the people, and they have come out with certain suggestions on reservations. So, in the recent past, the central government has also provided economically weaker sections reservations also. Now, what are the controversies? What are the arguments in favor of reservations and against reservations? Some sections of Indian society support the policy of reservations, and certain sections of Indian society oppose the policy of reservations. Now let us study what are the major arguments on reservation. The first and foremost argument is the 50% limitation on reservation. The Supreme Court of India has categorically stated that the extent of reservations should not exceed 50%. 50% of seats, 50% of jobs, 50% of economic benefits that are notified. They should not exceed 50% on reservations. This is the first controversy that has come. And secondly, reservation facility and poverty alleviation. The government has interpreted reservation facility in such a way that it alleviates poverty also. Indian society is a society with so much of poverty and destitution. As a result, many families do not even have a 2 square meal a day. So there are also various indicators that suggest that Indian people are very poor. The infant mortality rates are very high. The maternal mortality rates are high. The educational attainment, the age of educational attainment is very high. And the average years of stay in a school is very less. And there is also a trend of school dropouts at the primary level and secondary level. The percentage of students opting for higher education is also very less. So these are the various arguments that are there in the Indian society. And these arguments have suggested that reservation facilities should be provided as a principle of social justice to all the people, and the government should take every care in providing opportunities for the backward classes, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, women and minorities to come to the mainstream and compete with all the people on par with other people. So that's why the reservation facilities are given. But the Supreme Court of India has suggested that it should not exceed 50% of the total seats or the total number of employment. And reservations are needed. The second argument is reservations are needed for poverty alleviation. So these are the two arguments that suggested in favor of reservations. In fact, some of the sections of Indian society and some of the chief ministers of some of the states who have met at Chennai recently have suggested that the limit put by Indian Supreme Court that the reservation should not exceed 50% is irrational, and reservation should go even up to more than 50% also. So anyway, this is how uh, the 50% reservation, the limit for 50% reservation, and poverty and abject poverty and poverty alleviation are the arguments that consolidate the facility of reservations. Then what are the There are arguments both in favor of and against to reservation facilities in the Indian society. Among them, uh, first of all, those people who support reservations say that people who are historically disadvantaged need a fresh lease of life and social justice. That's why reservations are required. Secondly, the very concept of merit that people show is a myth, and everybody is capable of doing anything provided certain training is required. And whereas the upper castes have got that training facility and backward castes do not have. If given qualifications and training to all the people, reservations are not required. So that means everybody has the same type of merit. And thirdly, the affirmative policy is required as the policy of reservations because certain sections of people are underrepresented in education, public employment, politics. So it is the duty of the constitution and also by the state, Indian state, to correct the underrepresentation, the problem of underrepresentation, and make it representative. And there are also arguments against reservation that says merit is at danger. The concept of merit is neglected, and reservations create social divisions in the society. And reservation facilities are historically given to other certain sections, but there is no time limit for this. That's why there should be some time limit. And some people are also demanding for the introduction of creamy layer for utilizing reservations because the same sections of people who are utilizing reservation only are utilizing reservations time and again, and the sections of society which have not at all utilized the reservations are remaining poor. So these are the arguments both in favor of and against to reservations. And in course of reservation facilities, there are also certain demands for other reservations. They are the presently the reservations based on cost are accepted, but people are demanding for reservations based on religion also. Muslims demand reservations. And secondly, reservations are assured only in public sector. So people are demanding reservations for private sector also. And within the reservations, there should be some categorization of reservations so as to the fruits of reservation should reach all the classes of the depressed sections. And women reservation should also be implemented. So these are some of the arguments in favor of reservations. So a policy of reservation as a matter of public policy is a notable policy in Indian politics, and probably this policy is very vehemently followed in India than any other country as such. And this policy is benefiting many sections of society like Dalits, Adivasis, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, backward classes, women, and minorities also. So there are certain important questions here. Write about reservation policy in India. Discuss the historical background of reservation policy in India. And write about Kaka Kalekar Commission, Mandal Commission, and demands for new reservations. So these are some of the important questions. In the next class, we'll be discussing on education policy, new education policy, and environmental policy. So thank you, friends. Thank you very much.